So, Bending the Ink Machine was a rather popular game, right? Especially from, 2017 to 2019. But after the final chapter came out, what happens next? Well, Kindly Beast, the studio behind the series, decided that a brand new game from a completely new series was the way to go. This game was focused around the wooden puppet show turned dark. This was, of course, the failure known as... In this game, you as the bandit and everyone around you are controlled by strings. The visual elements of this game are really strong. It's just really cool how when you go from one room to the other, strings pull everything up and put a new room down. It's like, a puppet show. Instead of this game just being another boring, samey mascot horror game, it's got identity. Well, Kindly Beast must have known it had identity because they bet hard on this game doing well. There was a huge merchandise push, specifically products from the company Fat Mojo. Action figures, plushies, keychains, and more started flooding Walmarts everywhere, but, you can probably guess what happens next. Now, I'm not going to go in detail on this. There are plenty of videos out there on why this game flopped hard, whether that be the poor marketing, the bad gameplay, or designs that are just unappealing to many. So the game never got a second chapter, and it was later delisted, but the consequence of this was that, well, Walmarts were flooded with this merch, and they stayed flooded since this was merch from a game that it just doesn't exist anymore. Now, you'd think that with this being merch from a pretty well-known canceled game, the merch would have some audience or intrigue, right? No, not really. You can pretty much just find it all for pennies on eBay. So you want to know who the audience for this merchandise is? Me. Yeah, for some reason, I guess because of my fascination for the unloved and obscure, I've gathered a decent collection of SHOWDOWN Bandit merch. Not all of it, but still, I just wanted to take a little look at it all. I would go chronologically, but to my knowledge, this was all released at the same time, so, just might as well start with what I know best, the action figures. Like any good mascot horror series, SHOWDOWN Bandit was given a wave of small 5-inch figures, including the main character, Bandit, Miss Undertaker, who was your main ally in the game, and Greaves, who was a pretty basic enemy, I think, but hey, he actually has a pretty sick design. And you know how I said no one cared about these? Well, yeah, I got the whole set sealed on eBay for a clean 15 bones. And that's not even the cheapest you can find these. The boxes to these figures are pretty typical. They each have a pretty dark and grimy background. That's good for the horror vibe. But then they each have this purple and orange banner up top with the Western logo and the bullet holes. It's all pretty solid design work. I especially like the sheriff badge in the corner of the bubble saying it's Series 1. I really wonder when Series 2 is coming out, but yeah, it's a neat design. Also, 14 plus. Listen, I know it's a horror game, but come on, you know your audience. What's also funny? Just how much worse the back of the box is. Like, why are there just in-game renders on the back of the box where it says collect them all and not just renders of the figures? Those do exist. But besides that slight false advertising, there's also something I've never seen anyone mention. There's a typo where it says colors and decorations may vary. That's fine legal stuff, but if you peel the sticker off, it says vary. That's just kind of funny, or I guess it's very funny. But this is certainly not unheard of. Early releases of the Security Breach figures misspelt Vanny's name, but yeah, overall these boxes are pretty interesting. But who cares about the boxes? As for the actual figures themselves, I'd say all of them look pretty solid, but there's some noticeable issues. First off, the paint on all of them just isn't the best. The inside of the bandit's mouth is just completely unpainted. Greaves' eyes are way too far apart, but, it could have been worse. And Miss Undertaker is just extra green and just kinda funky looking. But they have fine sculpts and, basically zero posability. Yeah, you're not gonna get these guys into dynamic poses or even good looking ones. To be honest, you can't do a whole lot with the 5 swivels that these figures have. But hey, at least each of them come with 2 accessories, which is nice, even if not all of them are particularly necessary. But overall, yeah, these figures could have been a lot better. The lack of articulation really kills them for me. But finally for the figures, back when these were still in stores, my cousin actually got me the Bandit for Christmas, and I almost immediately Sharpied the inside of his mouth, which did definitely look a lot better, but recently I was like, might as well try to paint him better, and I did, kinda. I really just added some dry brushing and some really pointless eye shines. It's interesting, but it's not like that good. Moving on, I don't really have a lot to say about the plushies. Again, there were only 3, and they're a lot less favorable than the figures. I feel like they didn't really stylize these to fit the medium of a stuffed toy well enough. Like, the wooden texture doesn't need to be printed on. Also, why didn't they simplify and cutesify the eyes instead of making the Bandit look kinda high and making Miss Undertaker look... But hey, at least the plushies came in a fun display case that keeps a good graphic design. The tags also keep this design. They have the character's name and a pretty basic tag, and wait, why are these 3+ and not the figures? As you can see, they weren't packaged in any way, so why do I have this? This is a sealed Showdown Bandit plush that my mom found at Goodwill. You know, I assume they came packaged like this if you ordered them online or something. Then again, no one wanted these. I doubt many people were out there buying Showdown Bandit plushies online. Maybe they were sent to retailers like this, just to get opened up and put in cases. I don't know. If that's the case, I don't know how this ended up in Goodwill. You know, I don't even have a good way to end this section. I just thought this was a pretty neat and obscure item. Next off, to complete the trio of merchandise that, you know, has to exist for every mascot horror game, we have a blind bag set of clips. These are all pretty accurate versions of the characters, just with extra big heads, of course. It, of course, has the same 3 characters as before, plus a different pose for the Bandit and a golden emerald variant of the Bandit and Miss Undertaker. There's also a really cool blank puppet, this edgy freak, the banker, who is the best character in the game. And you know the faceless bandit, who was kinda built up to be the big threat of the game? Well, he did get a clip, but for some reason it's completely unpainted. And no, this isn't like a rare variant like the gold and emerald characters. It's just what his clip looks like. Odd. I got my clip, still sealed, from eBay. I got a pack of 10 and got everyone besides the gold bandit and Miss Undertaker. But hey, at least I got 3 of the edgy guys, and those are the only doubles I got. Or, you know, I guess triples. The guy's name is Frenzy, apparently. I don't remember anything about him. But yeah, overall, this is a pretty solid set of little blind bags. If you want to spice up your backpack with characters from a game that doesn't exist, well, you know, now's your chance. But next off, there were some... No, that's about it. There were a couple shirts online, and a couple posters, but yeah, I kind of felt like there was more. Wait a minute. What about this mug? It's already hard to find shirts online because, you know, who was buying these? But there's at least other pictures of these out there, but, you know, I can't find a single listing or even another picture of this mug. Now, I'm sure at least one person bought this mug, but it's not even on the wiki. Now, I know a mug being undocumented isn't that interesting, but with how little merchandise there is of this game, I'm surprised even a single piece is completely lost to time. You'll never be him. Anyways, that's about all I have to say regarding Showdown Bandit merch. I know it might not be that interesting, but I figured it would be kinda neat to do a little comprehensive look back on every single piece of merchandise that this failed game series produced. Even though the utter failure of this was a factor in the suing of Kindly Beasts being a reason why this studio collapsed and laid off dozens of employees, it is neat to look back on this. And to you, Fat Mojo, even if these may have been a failure, I'm sure the next game you made merch of must have been a success. Oh, you've got to be kidding me.